it's an interesting story, but let's not blow it out of proportion. But blowing out of proportion is how you take a $4 comic and make it worth 10 or 12 times what you paid for it.
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers. And now, here are Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
I think everything can be summed up as the difference between want and need. For example, do you want to do this podcast?
Go on.
I mean, on a very general and much broader level, but also on a very specific microcosmic level. We don't sell needs, we sell wants. But it's in the vernacular of needs.
Yeah.
People need issues. People need these books. People need these things.
Yeah, I look at doing this podcast as very much an aspect of doing my job. So
sure.
It all goes into the heading of, do I want to do my job? Like, yeah, I guess I do want to. Like, if I had limitless money, I probably would choose to do no job. But in the real world, this as a job isn't so bad.
Well, we're going to use wants and needs for as many different topics as I can apply it to without forgetting or getting tired.
I do love motifs.
Because I needed a new computer. But I also wanted a new computer.
Okay.
But my computer was dying, and it's rare that an electronic device is dying versus just dies. So to have the heads up to be able to say, oh, start backing things up now.
Yeah, for
Start
sure.
offloading programs now. And you helped me select the new machine, and I got it. And the funny part of this is that it was delivered to the store today, and Kent let me know it was there. So I went over and got it, but he had just had it in the back hallway. So I saw it and took it, and I never stopped in and said, hey, I got it. So I'm waiting for him to notice that it's gone.
What if he doesn't? Are you going to yell at him if, it's 7 o'clock and he never texts you and you're like, hey, man, I came and took my computer. Thanks for noticing.
He'll probably just assume that I did. Or not. Or not care.
Will he?
Or not care. But that's neither here nor there. So I set it up, and what a wonderful technological time that we live in, because years past, decades ago, when you got a new machine, it was like a week-long process of installing and starting and setting things over and whatnot.
Thank you, Cloud.
This was ready so quickly, and even a lot of the things that I was worried about, like, oh man, I'm going to have to change all the directories for iTunes because I'm now offloading everything to a separate drive, not the main hard drive. No, it's all in the cloud.
Yeah. Plus, I mean, for iTunes, it's literally just tagging a flag and saying, this is the directory where I want you to find all my iTunes stuff.
But
and I didn't
even have to.
That's great.
It's all there. Once I signed in, because I use iTunes Match, and it's because of all these things that we have in place ahead of time that make things easier.
Sure.
And all I needed to do was say, hey, I'm authorizing this computer to use the Adobe Suite, to use MS Office. Yeah. And all I had to do was set those programs up, and I'm back into all of it.
Yeah. I have a Mac, and it's very similar to kind of how iPhones and stuff work, where when you get a new iPhone nowadays, you're basically just logging in to your iCloud account on the new device, and then you kind of hold the new device and the old device kind of in proximity, and then it's like, oh, okay, we'll just pull everything off of the old device for you.
That's so great.
You don't have to do anything. Like, it is pulling over all of your, like, passwords and logins and apps and data and all that stuff. Like, everything else is just in the cloud, and it just pulls it down from the cloud for you. It's very painless. Like, these companies have done a great job of rewarding you for staying in their ecosystem. Like, if you have one old device and you get a new device, they want to make it frictionless.
Do you think we reward people for staying in our ecosystem?
I guess sort of. I mean, there's an element to the subscription service where not only are we pulling new books for you, but we have data about old books. When people come in and say, hey, did I get this? We can go, well, you didn't get it from us. So unless you're getting it from other places, no, you never got this. Or we've certainly had people come in shopping for spouses or family members, and they'll say, "Oh, they're a customer here. What do they normally get? Like, what do they like?" And we can look on their customer account and go, "Okay, well, this is the kind of stuff they normally get. So here's a new thing they haven't gotten from us."
What do they need?
Okay, so I think that's the value of
Okay, but that's an excellent point.
working with us continuously,
But also a jumping off point.
okay.
Based off of a particular book that came out this week. And I didn't plan on bringing Captain Marvel number 8 up so quickly.
Because my blood boils.
But I've seen...
Listener, we actually
Several-
postponed doing this podcast by about 18 hours because I had said that if we had recorded 18 hours ago, I would mostly just be screaming about Captain Marvel, the comic book, and its recent issue.
Yeah, not the character.
And I did not want to do that. I didn't feel like it was necessary just after we had done a Walking Dead 193 episode.
Well, I don't want to get too far away from what we were just talking about,
Sure.
but it's hard to bring the topic that I have up without setting you off.
I'll do what I
But
can.
you had just talked about how we can look into our system and see what people have bought.
Mm-hmm.
That is only for our subscribers.
It's true.
I have seen multiple stores in different parts of the country using Captain America as the jumping off. Captain Marvel as the jumping off point to show what they do in these situations.
Yeah.
And basically, these stores, and they neither of them use Comic Suite, but
Right.
it doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Any database can store this information.
They try to put everyone in their system. So when somebody who comes up, they say, "Hey, are you in our system? Do you want to be?" And that way it keeps track of all their purchases. So in this particular instance, they can look back and say, here are all the people that... Why is my eye tearing? Here are the people that we know bought Captain Marvel 7. So we can better track who to give 8 to.
Yeah, to go into a little detail for folks that maybe are not aware, this past week Captain Marvel number 8 came out, new issue by Kelly Thompson and Carmen Canaro. The problem was, it was an issue that introduced a brand new hero named Star. Now, I'm going to jump ahead to the end right now and tell you that Star is probably not going to be a big deal character. Star is almost 100% definitely part of some scheme that's happening in the storyline. Star matters in the same way as, like, when Iron Fist was Daredevil. Like, it's part of the story, but it's not a brand new character or a brand new hero. It's not. Star is not going to be, in Avengers 5 when it comes out in movie theaters in 2023 or whatever. Star is not going to be the lead character in a Disney Plus live action series. But for some reason, people on the internet were convincing themselves that Star was a huge new character, the hot new character find of 2019.
Quote, Marvel finally has their Superman.
Yeah. They already did. It was Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
The star of the comic book, Captain Marvel. And hopefully this is not too much of a digression. One of the things that's infuriating about the current comic book marketplace and the way the collectibles are being treated by speculators is that it seems so unhinged from anything resembling our common shared reality. Once upon a time, people would speculate on comic books because of a storyline that mattered. Jason Todd got killed, so that was going to be a big deal. And it was a big deal because Batman was a big comic book, and Jason Todd was Robin, and Jason Todd being killed by the Joker was a big deal. These were all things that you could point to and go, yeah, I understand why that's happening. For a while it was, artists like Todd McFarlane are incredibly popular. I want to get the first Todd McFarlane issue of Spider-Man, or I want to get Todd McFarlane issues of Infinity Incorporated. You're a fan of the artist. You want to collect all of their work. That makes sense to me. I understand why that would happen. And the scarcity of comic books at the time made it so that invariably those issues would be more valuable. More people were looking for them than copies existed. Ergo, the price is going to go up. These are all common sense things. In the last 10 years or so, there's been a push towards character first appearances, and specifically character first appearances for characters that appear in movies and TV shows. People are trying to track down, the first appearance of Iron Man, the first appearance of the Hulk, the first appearance of Captain America. And those values for those books have escalated. They were high before because characters like Iron Man and Captain America and the Hulk were big deals before the movies happened, and there were people who always wanted their first appearances. But now that the movies have happened, it's made those values go up. So the problem for a lot of speculators is that the values are so high for all the characters that have already had movies and TV shows announced that it's very difficult to make money speculating on them. Spider-Gwen's first appearance is incredibly expensive, and even if it goes up, the floor of that first appearance is like $100 or more. I haven't checked it in a while, but there was a period there where it was pushing $100. So the investment is so high. You could return that investment in time, but it might only double to something like $200 if you wait a few years. So what a lot of people are trying to do, as they've always done, is try and get rich quick. And the way they're doing that now in 2019 is they're trying to get ahead of the game. Way ahead of a movie or a TV show being announced, they're trying to corner the market on first appearances or first issues of comic books in case they get optioned, in case they become a big deal. And that means that it's fertile ground for people to get very, very crazy about things that will, in time, not matter.
Well, don't you think that we're never going to see a new major, capital M, I don't mean major X, character?
No, I think
there's not going to be a new Batman, a new Superman, a new Spider-Man, a new Iron Man.
I don't know about that level, but I mean, you may in time. Again, there's characters like Spider-Gwen, who's only a few years old, and she's already been the one of the lead characters in a major motion picture.
I grant you,
she's been in cartoons. She's got merchandise. There are fans who are coming up who look at her and go, "That's the Spider character I'm most."
I grant you, Harley Quinn is maybe the biggest in the last.
Miles Morales,
Okay.
That was a first appearance character that is still something where people are like, I want Miles Morales. It's a little different in the modern age because your ability to interact with these characters, to get all of their stories, it has so many options. You can get them digitally, you can download torrents, you can buy graphic novels. You don't have to buy the original comic book. But for some people who are invested enough in these characters, they want that stuff. New Mutants 98 is a big deal for a lot of people. There's still people coming to the market who are like, I love the Deadpool movies. I'd love to get the first Deadpool appearance. But
I mean, I would argue that Miles Morales Spider-Man and Spider-Gwen are just derivations of an existing character, but that doesn't take away how popular they are.
Sure, and past a certain point.
But I mean, you
could argue that nearly every
answered with Deadpool. That counts.
But there's a lot of characters that are just derivative of another character because that's just how the market is now.
True, but they're Spider-Man and Spider-Woman.
That's a whole different conversation about financial compensation for major publishers and ownership of characters, and how now that you have an outlet like Image or Dark Horse, you don't need to give them your brand new idea when it could be someplace else.
I mean, in writing monthly comics, you are creating new characters, heroes, villains, supporting characters all the time.
Right.
As in life, you meet new people all the time.
Right. And that's one of the jokes about the way the speculator market is going, is the way that the hive mind can kind of latch onto one character where it's like, you can't throw a rock at a comics rack without hitting 4 or 5 brand new characters, heroes or villains or supporting casts that appear in these books. So investing in these things in the hope that Star becomes a character that's in a movie or a TV show or a cartoon, you will go broke doing that. One of the dumbest things to me in the recent I've got to get in on the ground floor before the floor's even built model of speculating is when Dark Horse announced they were doing a licensing deal with Netflix, where Netflix could kind of go through the entire Dark Horse catalog, everything Dark Horse owns, and say, this is something we want to make a movie or TV show about. A first look deal. So people were basically picking up any Dark Horse #1 because what if that's the one they make a TV show out of? Dark Horse as a company has existed for decades. You know how many goddamn comic books they've done? Are people like scrounging the back issue boxes for Boris the Bear #1 in case that somehow becomes like the next hit Netflix show? Like, I get that Umbrella Academy was a big hit and those books matter, but Umbrella Academy was a popular comic before any of that even happened.
I'm holding out for that weekly episodic Concrete series.
Sure, Dark Horse Presents. There you go. Start getting like every Dark Horse Presents ever.
Each issue almost had a new character.
There you go. So,
what are those old barbed wires worth? You know, the first appearance
right,
of barbed
they
wire.
made a movie out of that, right? So anyway, we've gotten, I think, way off topic, maybe, but I wanted to add a little bit of context to how bonkers this market is and how frustrating it is, because it's no longer something where you can have any sort of plan as a retailer, where you can say, oh, this artist is really popular, I'm going to get a bunch more copies of this issue because I know that people will care about it. No one cares about that stuff anymore. That's not where the market is. That stuff's predictable. The market now is in shit that you could never predict, because it might not be in a solicit. It might not be on a cover. It might be a thing where someone somewhere on a website goes, oh yeah, by the way, this new character's in there and they're going to be huge. It's not based on anything. It's based on a website or a mailing list saying it, and then it's gospel. And then it just activates this hive mind that goes out, and suddenly they need this book. They'll never look inside of it. They'll never know what's in it, but they need that book. Because that book for 72 hours is not a $4 comic book featuring a story that you might want to read. It's a $20 book you can sell on eBay. And that's its value, and that's its importance. And so what a lot of stores are having to deal with now on an almost daily basis is, how do you serve...
Marvel Comics Run 6, Walking Dead 193, Captain Marvel 8. That's just the last 3 weeks.
I mean, Captain Marvel and Marvel Comics Presents are really the same thing. Walking Dead is kind of sort of a different thing.
Sure.
Where there's... you wouldn't expect there to be people who'd suddenly care about the last issue, mostly because they didn't know it was the last issue. If they
I brought it up because retailers did the same thing.
Right. But this Marvel Comics Presents thing from a few weeks ago is exactly this. Suddenly, in issue 6 of Marvel Comics Presents, oh, Wolverine's biological daughter's in there. And people flipped out, which is insane to me because, one, X-23 exists. Two, I know it's not his name, but I call him this, Dakin exists. And who cares about Dakin?
Yeah. What are his
That's his biological son.
Yeah.
And he's been in a bunch of things. No one cares, but everyone treated this like, oh my god, this is the most important character introduction in an X-Men comic in a decade. And it's like, it's not. It's an interesting story, but let's not blow it out of proportion. But blowing out of proportion is how you take a $4 comic and make it worth 10 or 12 times what you paid for it. Is blowing it out of proportion. If anyone sits down and goes, this doesn't matter, then the Emperor has no clothes, and all of a sudden this stuff doesn't matter, and it's $4 and you can enjoy the story. But what stores, again, are having to deal with is how, in this insane marketplace where you cannot predict where the swarm is going to go next, do you best serve your regular customers? Because we've talked about this before. One of the biggest problems stores have when it comes to speculators is, if they buy up all the comics, then the guy or gal who's been shopping with you for months or years, who's not a subscriber, but shops with you regularly, comes in and all of a sudden they can't get Captain Marvel number 8. And they're a fan of the character, and they're a fan of what Kelly Thompson has been doing with the book. They can't get Marvel Comics Presents, and they've bought the last 5, and now all of a sudden they can't get part 6 of the story. Because all of them have been hoovered up by these people who are just flipping them online to other people who don't care about the story. So stores are having to figure out, under the gun, how to solve this problem. And everyone's kind of trying something different. We've enforced at the store for a long time, divorced from anything the market's been doing, a limit of 2 copies per person per day. So no one can really speculate on anything. They can't just come in and buy every copy we have of Captain Marvel number 8, because we're going to go, no, 2 per person. But even that hasn't turned out to be enough, because most of these books are books we don't order a lot of. I think Marvel Comics Presents number 6, we had like 3 copies for the rack because we sold 2 copies off the rack in number 5.
Yeah.
Captain Marvel number 8 has not been doing super great for us since issue 5, so I think we had like maybe 6 or 7 copies. So those 6 or 7 copies a month ago would have served 6 or 7 people. Now it's serving maybe 3, and none of them read that book last month and aren't going to read it next month. So the 6 or 7 people who read it last month can't get a single copy. Because 3 people came in first thing to say, oh my god, I have to get this.
And it's easier just to say, oh, all right, I'll quit this series, than to try to go get it.
So now not only are we going to have problems with the people who are shopping with us, who are going to look at us as a place that can't take care of what they need out of comic books, but even if they stick with us, they're not going to buy Ms. Marvel or Captain Marvel number 9. Because they're missing an issue and they can't get it. And maybe they'll wait for a second print that's coming out in 3 weeks, but maybe in 3 weeks they realize they don't care as much. And that was the last straw for that book for them.
And also, as retailers, as people that sell the comics, how do we order the second print?
Yeah, there was a thing.
The speculators won't want it.
No, they don't.
But how many people that missed it are going to want that story?
Yeah, and then how do we order 9? How many people did we actually serve with issue 8? Was it, when we're looking at the raw sales data, we're not going to be able to say, oh, that was 3 people who were just speculating. We're just going to say, okay, 6 copies sold. So what does that mean? Do we order 6? We sold out 6 in 1 week. When we're looking at the sales data, do we order 6? Do we order 8? Do we order 5? And the nickel and diming on that can help put a store out of business. Suddenly, you didn't have the 3 copies that you could have sold, so you lost sales, or you have 3 more copies than you were planning on, so you lost money on it. And you multiply that out over literally every week, there's some new book that people are speculating on, and it becomes almost impossible to realistically order these books. And just in general, it's just such a frustration.
You'll notice that type of buying doesn't affect people with independent books, where every Image #1 is the first appearance of the whole cast of that book, and they don't care.
No, but I guess Reaver people care a little bit, and I don't know. It's incredibly frustrating, and I think it's such a stupid way for people to spend their money because it's so short term. Like, there's no real reason why these books are worth a lot. Like, people are excited about these books because they're worth a lot, and they're worth a lot because people are excited about them. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
No.
It's such an Ouroboros. It doesn't... There's no entry point. There's no one single moment where we can go, oh, that's why.
At least in the case of a book like Reaver, where we're fans of Justin Jordan from his Luther Strode days, and we're huge fans of Rebecca Isaacs from her DB8 days and her Buffy days.
And I think the premise is super strong.
Right, so we ordered a bunch of those.
Sure.
And thanks to Image supporting it for retailers as well, we still have a bunch, to the surprise of people coming in.
Yeah.
Oh, it's sold out everywhere. No, we have a ton of them because we took a big chance on this book.
But what some stores are doing with stuff like Captain Marvel #8, and again, having to figure out a solution because it is only going to keep happening. This is not a fluke occurrence. This is every week now. Is basically... You can price stuff up. That's one solution some stores have taken, is kind of like what we were talking about in the previous episode of Walking Dead 193, is, okay, this thing's going for $20 online. Great, it's $20 in our store too. Why should we make the same amount? It definitely filters out the people who are just going to grab it because they can flip it for more money because they can't. What they can get online is what you're selling it for, which means they've made $0. So you'll get it selling it to the people who either are dumb enough to pay multiples of cover price for a brand new book, or for people who, unfortunately, are invested in the story and want to read it regardless of the price.
Have no recourse to get the last book in this series they've been reading for how many years.
Whose only option is, I guess I got gouged on this one because that's what the market is charging for it. The other option that some stores have been doing is basically gatekeeping, and it's a dirty word and it's got a negative connotation, and I'm not a huge fan of gatekeeping. But in this instance, I understand why stores are doing it, because when you're presented with people coming in who, again, will not buy the next issue, did not buy the previous issue, are taking copies out of the hands of your regular customers who are maybe only shopping with you because you are a way they can make money, and you've also got customers who are your longtime customers who care about the stories and are a good investment for you as a retailer. You've got to have some way to separate the two. And the way to do that is sales data, is being able to say, oh, okay, you're a regular customer. I see you've bought Captain Marvel 6 and 7. Here's a copy of Captain Marvel #8 for $3.99 like it says on the cover. Someone else comes up to the counter and says they want Captain Marvel #8. You go, okay, well, are you in our system? No, I've never shopped here before. Great, here it's $20. Like, there's something about that a year ago I would have been like, that is abhorrent. I find that incredibly distasteful that you would separate different kinds of customers based on, are they true fans or not? But in July of 2019, I look at it and I go, that is a solid way to stay in business. That is a solid way to serve your clientele. And if the people who are coming in who are only buying books from you because they can flip them online, get pissed off and leave and never come back, that sounds like a solution to me, not a problem.
Yeah.
I would not get mad at that. If those people feel like they didn't get good service and they don't shop with you again, congratulations. Now you can sell your copies to actual customers.
It just seems like so much extra work
Oh yeah.
And especially
For what amounts to basically no extra money.
right, and also I don't know, like, first of all, as a customer at a store, and I don't mean comic store, I mean in general, I don't know that I want that.
What part?
Well, I don't want to go into the grocery
being
store
interrogated?
and have them say, "Oh, what's your name? Hey, I see that you bought this lettuce before. Do you want lettuce again?"
Or I guess, yeah, I wanted to buy this can of cream corn. Have you bought cream corn with us before? I have not. That's a weird question.
No one would now. Cream corn is gross.
It's super gross. But it's also something that you can get in a grocery store.
Yeah, no, I know. But at the same time, Barnes and Noble say there's something to be said for them tracking your data, and this is almost like a Comic Hub discussion, or what we do with the emails, is saying, hey, you like Harlan Coben, he has a new book out. And I have to, like, I'm a huge Harlan Coben fan.
Right.
I have to just every 8-10 months go to his website and say, does he have a new book out?
Uh-huh. And if so, how many?
Yeah, exactly. Because it could be multiples. So there is value in that, but also, when I just walk into Barnes & Noble and pick up a Harlan Coben book and go up to the register, I just want to give them the money and get the book out. I want them to say, oh, you're in our system, let's track this, let's record it. I feel like I'm saying the exact opposite of how we started this with the computer setups, though. How that we want tracked because it's the programs and the data that we use regularly. But this is just a record of your sales history. It's like that Face app that everybody's playing with now where it's everywhere. It's like, oh, this is so much fun, let's do it. No, it's stealing your information.
Yeah. Nowadays, I mean, this is a much larger discussion, so I'll probably do a small portion of it. Nowadays, your data is your value as a human being. And in general,
I have a lot of data.
You're constantly having to decide how much of that you give away and what you're getting in return for it. And when I look at what we offer as a store, while we want to track your data if you're a subscriber, hopefully there is a value in it for people. Not only for us being able to say, yes, you bought that book already, even though you haven't read it, don't buy it again. But also being able to say, hey, you follow this creator, you read these books, here's a new comic that's coming out that you may want to read and you may not want to miss out on. People can opt out of that stuff if they want to. They don't have to be in our subscription service. If they are super sick of emails, we can take them off of every mailing list. It's definitely a possibility. But again, hopefully the data they're giving us by shopping with us regularly is something that we can use to enhance the experience.
Yeah, hopefully the data we're giving them in return is valuable.
Yeah. In other situations, you as a consumer or a human being may say, I don't feel comfortable giving you my data for what I'm getting in return. Like, what you want from me is out of line with what I'm getting in return. So maybe you don't sign up for a point system at a retailer that you're going to once a year. Or maybe you don't plug in your email address to a website that you don't frequent that often. You don't need them insinuating themselves into your life.
Yeah, that's one of the things that had to do with this new system. Every website I've gone to, it's like, oh, do you want us to put us notifications? No. I absolutely do not. Please don't ever do that.
Yeah. When you buy an electric toothbrush, you don't necessarily have to tell Sonicare, here's my email address, please send me new offers. I don't care. I'm not that interested in it. It's not that important to me. Like, it's a one-time purchase. Maybe I buy from a different dental provider in the future. Philips as a brand does not need to be integrated into my life. And that's what a lot of these brands are doing when you're giving them your information. So if you do shop at a comic shop normally, if you do go in regularly, I can understand why people would feel like, oh, this is someplace I want to have my data because I want this experience to be enhanced. But yeah, a Russian face app, maybe less so. Maybe you want them to have less of your life.
They already have your souls.
I guess.
From the photos that have been taken.
I suppose. So yeah, this Captain Marvel thing is just... When I was messaged by another retailer that Captain Marvel #8 was already Tuesday night going for $20 online, I messaged them to thank them for the information and also to tell them that I 100% did not want to go into work on Wednesday now, because I was already so frustrated by the concept of, like, Jesus Christ, like, we just got done with Walking Dead 193, and now, like, the next day was going to be like, oh, people are going to be coming in about this stupid Captain Marvel book. Like, they don't care about the story. They're not interested in the characters beyond what the value of the book is. You're going to be fielding messages and phone calls about this all day. And we were. You're going to sell out of this book in less than a day.
And we did.
And it's just going to be something we're going to complain about on the podcast
And
later.
And honestly, that was a book that we were limiting to one. People come up to were like, no, you can only have one.
Yeah, and at first I'm like, should we make a sign? And then I thought, no, because the second you make a sign, people who weren't going to buy it are like, oh, it's limited? Then they're going to grab one.
Right.
Like, that's the way the stupid stuff works. The second you say, this is a scarce book, people who are even vaguely interested are like, well, I want to find out why. And the answer of why is, because people are dumb.
Because it's a scarce book.
Yeah.
That's the answer why.
Yeah, it's a scarce book because a bunch of people are buying it because it's a scarce book. It's so stupid. There's no reason. And yeah, thankfully, the people who were trying to buy two, we go, oh, we're limiting one per copy on this. Or one per person on this. And I thought people would kick about it, but they were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, every single one of them was nice.
Because we were already only charging $4, and every other store in the area that had it was charging like $20-something. So, shit, yeah, they're excited to get one copy for $4 instead of 0 copies for however much money.
I still always expect the turn to the guy behind him. Hey, can you buy this for me?
Yeah.
Or, but mine's for my buddy. He can't be here.
There were books that we had to do. Basically, we took off the sales floor because we were limiting one per person, and suddenly, like, this guy's whole family needed to buy a copy, and it's like, no, forget it. Like, now no one can buy it. You ruined it.
Yep.
The end.
I know exactly what book you're talking about.
Yep. People just trying to scam the system, and it's like, I know what you're doing. Like, don't act like I'm an idiot and I can't see what's happening here. This is not a letter of the law situation. This is a rule that I helped make up, and I can change it whenever I want.
This just reminded me of 2 separate incidents by the same customer, and obviously I won't call them out, but if they listen to this podcast, they'll know it's them, and I don't care.
His name was Mike. That was my Matt Berry.
No, that was good.
Thank you.
I
don't know who it is, so I don't have any real guesses.
Okay. This week they needed 3 copies of the free X-Men giveaway.
Okay.
Why? Why do you need 3?
Oh,
I know it's a free thing. It doesn't matter, but really,
yeah.
Like 2 I get. Like I don't care. 3, come on.
And on top of that, like, I mostly don't care because Marvel always gives us way too many of those. And we throw most of them away.
Yeah, I know.
No one takes them.
But here's the biggest
You know how many
thing.
Young Gun sketchbooks I threw out this past week?
Well, it's because they're not
like
inclusive.
80% of the ones we got sent. Because no one really cared to take them.
Anyway. This person came to shop and was dropped off in front of the store by someone who was driving a car that they were in.
Okay.
They came into shop for about 10 minutes. For that whole time, their driver and their car just sat up front, double parked, blocking a full lane of traffic.
Oops. Western Avenue.
The whole time. People were honking as they drove by. The driver didn't care. Shopper was in the store for like a solid 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes of a full lane of Western Avenue traffic being blocked. Why can't you turn off to a side street, pull into the alley,
Sure.
drive around until you find a space?
Yeah, people do it all the time.
The balls to just take up.
Just be like, you know what, this is more important than everybody in Chicago.
Yeah.
Sure.
I can't. Man, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Maybe if that hadn't happened and then the 3 copies, like the 3 copies, whatever. I mean,
Sure.
I'm still gonna. I'm not gonna stop you from taking 3 copies of a free magazine.
Yeah.
But I will look at you like, really?
I'll have a bit of judgment.
Yeah.
Can't stop me from doing that.
But anyway, let me get back to the putting everybody into the system.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
Oh, I mostly don't want to.
I don't either.
Yeah, it's a lot of extra work for us, and while it would maybe help in these situations, it just feels really invasive. Like, we're giving people an option where we can have their information. That's the subscription service.
Right.
Beyond that, no. They don't need to do that.
Here's what I will say, though. If someone listening to this is a regular customer, doesn't want to be a subscriber, but comes up to us and says, hey, can I be in your system? Sure.
Yeah, we've had a couple people
We'll put
over the
you in.
years who
We'll
are
put you
like,
in.
I get graphic novels. I never remember what I buy. Can you keep track of that for me? And it's like, yeah, we actually have a service where we can do that. But even that rarely works because it means that you have to come to the counter and tell everybody who's ringing you up, I'm in the system. Because usually the way that we bring up your account is because you're a subscriber and you have subscription books.
Yes.
If you don't have subscription books, if you just walk up to the counter, I'm not necessarily going to know, oh, you're the person that we're tracking graphic novels for, unless I know you personally.
Right. And even if you say, hey, I'm in the system, depending on who's ringing you up, if it's not Dal or myself, there still may be a, okay, like...
Why am I doing
do you
this?
have books on hold? Like, they'll get your name, put you in the system, then go look in the subscription boxes and be like, oh, you don't have anything this week?
Yeah.
But anyway, it is...
Yeah, in general, I don't really feel the need to do it for other
What
people.
about Blockbuster membership cards? Everybody has a membership
Yeah,
card.
just scan the barcode. Yeah, super simple.
To finally wrap up from the beginning, I got a new computer, and it was so much easier to install, and it's hopefully going to make work a lot easier because I do a ton of work from that system. But also, this episode will be the first episode everything is done on the new system.
Okay.
The one major issue I'm having right now is the sound is different and there's way too much bass, and I don't know how to change that.
Uh-oh.
I've been looking on things online, but that's what I was doing when we stopped to do this. But it's definitely the kind of thing that when I first started having iTunes Play, I thought, that sounds wrong. But there's no mixing board that's part of your system.
Oh, okay.
There used to be. There's not anymore. I got to fix that. So I don't know. Maybe I'll be editing this one weird because we all sound different. I'll be adding effects that we don't need. So Dale, I see you have some paper in your lab.
I do. I have a scrap of paper. There was sales data, or I guess order data, or order estimate data that was put out by Diamond Comic Distributors this past week. It was for books that were shipping through the month of June. And again, I should maybe stress estimates. A lot of the data that Diamond gives out is not necessarily 100% accurate, and there's a lot of kind of indexing and figuring out what multiples are and blah, blah, blah. So these numbers are a tiny bit of grain of salt. But for the month of June, the top two books in the industry, number one book in the industry was Black Cat #1 from Marvel Comics, and the number two book in the industry was Dceased #1 from DC Comics.
So one is basically one company... Actually, no, I take it back. Both books are the major two publishers borrowing ideas from the other one.
Yeah, pretty much. Black Cat was almost entirely like Catwoman, but Marvel comic books. And Dceased is Marvel Zombies,
DC
but
zombies.
they're DCs.
Yeah. They're not zombies, but yeah, they're zombies.
The fact that Black Cat #1 was the biggest book in the industry was a shock to me. But more than that, and the thing that made it something I wanted to talk about, was that Black Cat #1 sold basically double what Dceased #1 sold. Dceased #1 was like 120,000 something copies. Black Cat #1 was like 254,000 copies. It was insane. And I'm looking at that, and it was jaw-dropping to me, because in our store, it's almost exactly the opposite, if not more so. So I'm like, I got to pull the numbers out, because I need to show people how weird this market is and how disconnected Challengers is from the realities of the marketplace.
Just on the surface, Black Cat is about one character.
Yeah.
Dceased is like an event book where it's all the DC heroes.
Yeah, and I'll give a little caveat. I'm not judging the quality of either book. I think both of them are okay. I thought Black Cat was better than I thought it would be, and Dceased, not really my bag, but executed well. Neither of them are books that I look at and go, these are amazing and people are missing out for reading them, nor is either one of them like the biggest mistake the market's ever made. They're both decent comics, and sometimes in a month, a decent comic is going to be the best-selling one. That's just how it shakes out. But it's so different from how our sales were that I needed to talk about it. And occasionally people will kind of ask us about the market and our take on it. And one of the things that we'll usually put in as a little proviso is what works for Challengers is not necessarily how the rest of the market works. There's books that we sell incredibly well, and there's other books that the market is huge on that we can't move. And this was the best indicator of that, maybe ever, and the thing I'll maybe point to from now on when I try to give people an example of how unrepresentative Challengers can be to the marketplace. So Black Cat #1 sold through to the market, not sold to consumers, but stores ordered double what they ordered for Dceased #1. To give you an example of how Challengers did it, Dceased #1 across 3 covers, regular, variant, horror movie homage cover, we ordered 100 copies of Dceased #1. So realistically, we should have ordered 200 copies of Black Cat #1.
If we follow the way the marketplace goes, yes.
Across 2 covers, the regular J. Scott Campbell cover and the Art Germ variant, we ordered 30 copies of Black Cat #1. So I guess by that token, we probably should have ordered 15 copies of Dceased #1.
Yes.
Here's what we sold across the first 3 weeks of
30%
sales.
of one as opposed to 50% of the other.
Yeah. So across 3 weeks of sales, for Dceased #1, we ordered 100 copies. We sold 91 copies.
91 out of 100? Okay.
We eventually sold out, but it took us more than 3 weeks. Black Cat #1, we ordered 30 copies. In 3 weeks, we sold 20. So it's not like we massively underestimated the demand for Black Cat. We didn't sell out of that one either, and percentage-wise, we sold less over 3 weeks than we did of Dceased #1.
Yes.
We still have copies of the Art Germ variant if people want to buy them. We got like 6 copies on the rack. While the market is saying we completely screwed up our ordering based on how every other store seemed to order them, our sales data shows, no, we got it exactly right. If anything, we over-ordered Black Cat. We probably should have ordered less. We only sold 2/3 of them. Dceased, we eventually sold out, and we ordered a new printing, so we probably under-ordered that one. We probably should have ordered closer to 120. So that ended up, I pulled these numbers together on a Wednesday because I needed them for when we would eventually record. And Patrick had a few minutes, so when I'm showing him these numbers, you went to a few different online sites to find out, like...
Yeah, this is a game I do now, which I don't know why I do it, because it just makes me not understand my industry anymore. But to check on what people are selling these for
because
online retailers.
For Black Cat, when you see numbers that are that out of whack, that seem that insane to you, the answer for why it's happening, it used to be like Loot Crate or like store-exclusive variants.
I do have a question that I don't know if we have the answer to.
Okay.
DC's had 3 covers.
Yes.
Black Cat had 2.
2 that we stocked, yeah.
But I'm sure a variety of variant covers.
Well, that's what I was going to say. It used to be, if the numbers were out of whack, where suddenly a book was selling like 50,000 more copies than you thought it would, it'd be like, oh, Loot Crate, some sort of online exclusive, maybe like a bunch of store exclusive variants, because all that stuff usually gets reported together. Diamond doesn't break out individual line items, it just says Black Cat sold this much. So how much of that is a J. Scott Campbell cover, an Art Germ cover, another open order variant that we didn't stock? We'll never know. They'll never tell us. But when you see those numbers nowadays, what it means is, oh, there were a bunch of really high incentive ratio variants. 1 in 200s, 1 in 500s, 1 in the thousands. That's the stuff that can massively skew those numbers. So with Black Cat, it's like, oh, that's what it was. So what you did, Patrick, that was interesting, was you went to a few sites to go, okay, what are these selling for? And the key thing was, are those super high incentive ratio variants selling out? Because that can tell us whether or not the stores were right to do this.
It's worth it for a retailer to take that kind of a risk and not have to worry about selling all those regular covers of Black Cat #1 because you sold a 1 in 500 for, I don't know, $500 or whatever.
Your store may have ordered 2,000 copies of Black Cat when you can maybe only sell 40 off the rack, but you got 4 1 in 500 variants that you can sell for $400 each. So that's $1,600 you're going to make on those. Will probably more than pay for all of the copies that you have to throw in the garbage, basically.
Yeah.
Give away. But what you found out that was really interesting was that looking at the few sites, you can still get those 1 in 500 variants or whatever.
Yeah, they're not selling.
Yeah.
They're priced very high.
Well, they're priced what you'd probably need to sell them for to make up for what you're losing.
But people aren't buying them.
Yeah. Which means that stores are taking a bath on this. Like, there was a store that we were looking at where they're already selling the first issue J. Scott Campbell cover for like 50% off a cover.
Yeah, I mean...
Because they have probably hundreds of them that they can't sell, that there's no market for, because Black Cat is not the #1 character in the industry. It's a good book. It's solid. But the idea of it selling multiples of Amazing Spider-Man is absurd. Is stores taking a stock position that is insane. Just baffling to me that they would do that. And for me as a retailer in an industry that needs the industry to still be here in coming months, a very scary thing for stores to do. Because stores tying up a ton of capital and eventually losing a bunch of money on a project like Black Cat #1 means stores that maybe can't order as much product in the future, which means publishers that can't sell as many comics, which means publishers that can't make as many new books, which means publishers that might go out of business, which means I can't order books from them and sell them to my customers, and that directly impacts my ability to make a living. This shit's all I don't mean to tie this into any sort of promotional thing, so this is not paid for. It's all a circle of life. This is all something where we're all existing together, and if people start screwing up that circle, we all suffer for it. And that's what I see when I see that Black Cat #1 sold twice what the #2 book in the industry sold, and yet we sold like less than basically a quarter of what the #2 book sold for the #1 book. Like these are unhealthy numbers. This is a very bad scenario.
I'm sure there are stores, obviously, that merit that the way that ours is the opposite. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's a store that ordered 100 copies of Black Hat and sold out and only sold 20 copies of Dceased.
I can't imagine, though.
I can't imagine a lot of the way stores run.
Well, looking at the content between the two, I can't imagine a store where Black Cat was a book that sold great to your customers, but those same customers had no interest in the DC Zombie book.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said before, how just the scope of the books.
Not even the scope, but just like the kind of market that I see. Like,
I wonder
if you care about things like Art Germ variants, you probably also care about Francesco Mattina variants, and you care about Joker horror covers. You know what I mean?
I wonder how Catwoman sells versus Black Cat for stores.
See, that's the thing. Like, they basically sold more or less the same for us.
Yeah, for us.
Yeah, well, and that's why I'm really curious with issues 2 and 3. Like, if stores took a bath on #1 and found that there was not a market,
we went up high. We ordered high on Catwoman #1, but that was due to the Batman storyline and the timing.
Right, but what I'm looking at though is like, what is Catwoman 13 going to be selling versus Black Cat #2?
Sure. Yeah.
Because again, stores clearly are taking a bath on Black Cat #1, which means their issue 2 numbers are going to be more in line with what they can actually move. And I've said this before, we are not a store that has like the whales that will get 1 in 500 variants. People don't approach us about that. We don't have to worry about stocking them. If it's a thing that can work for a store, I can understand why a store would want to do it. If you've got it pre-sold, I can't fault a store for trying to make money off of that. The stuff that makes me kind of crazy and the stuff that makes me fear for the industry is when stores are doing it without someone to sell it to. When they're just doing it on the hope that they can turn this 1 in 500 variant into $400. That's risky, and that's unnecessarily risky.
It seems that every store used to have 1 or 2 people that would get all those things.
Yep.
But that is such an unsustainable model because that person always reaches a breaking point and then stops all of them. They don't just say, well, I won't get this one, but I'll get these. No, they just stop buying all those variants.
The guy who's getting every Amazing Spider-Man comic book will not settle for most of the Amazing Spider-Man comic books. If he can't get all of them, he'll want none of them. Yeah, you can absolutely price those guys right out of the market. It's the old Marvel zombie thing. People used to get every Marvel comic, and then it became getting every Marvel comic means paying about $150 a week.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't do that.
I remember, and obviously this is a long time ago, my brother and my monthly subscription total was like close to $50. And George would say, we got to cut back. That's way too much. And
it's almost $15 a week, Patrick.
Yeah. Amazing. That was part of it. Amazing was part of it.
Yeah, still is. The market in general, like, I'm more frustrated and fascinated by it almost every week. The ways that consumers are becoming unpredictable and detrimental to this industry is terrifying, and the way that stores are having to adapt from one unhealthy business model to a completely different unhealthy business model is a nightmare scenario, frankly. Like, never has it seemed more unlikely to make a living selling stories to people who like stories than this month.
We're not predicting. This is going to be the conversation about all of the YA imprints. How each publisher has their own YA imprint now.
Yeah, boy, there's a lot. I hope that there's a market there for everybody. Yeah, it was. We were at a grocery store, and I got an email from. No, I don't think it was an email. I think it was a news site saying that somebody had gotten picked up by
Yes, that's right, listener. Dow is still doing research for work while shopping for his groceries.
Yes. I can't remember what company, Pantheon maybe, is starting up their own YA and middle grade reader imprint, and they picked up somebody from who used to be at First Second. And I just realized, like, man, there's a lot of, like, every publisher's got this imprint. And at this point, it's still pretty much growing, but like any segment of the market, it's not, indefinite. Like, there's an elasticity that you can eventually snap back into a smaller shape and space.
Just because it works for the people that are doing it now doesn't mean it's going to work for every single people that want to do it. Look at superhero comics or comics in general, how all these new publishers are coming out saying, here's our entire line, and there isn't the readership to support it.
Or just, you look at the manga boom from, maybe 15 years ago, and there were a lot of publishers who were jumping in, and it was great at the time at first because there were so many new readers who were not reading other comic books, but they read manga, and they read a ton of it. And the market blew up, and tons of great stuff was imported, but eventually that market kind of burst. Publishers were putting out way too many books, and way too many series were not selling, and then all of a sudden bookstores are like, I can't devote this much space to stuff that's not turning that fast. So they massively cut down on their lines, and a lot of chain bookstores returned a ton of books to publishers, and some of them went out of business. And it took the market about a decade to kind of readjust. Manga still came out, but it's only, I think, the last 5 years where you've seen it rebound to a more healthy, sustainable state, and hopefully it can stay that way and everyone learn their lesson. I'm a little afraid that the middle grade YA stuff is going to go the same route, where everyone kind of gets in the pool at once, and then all of a sudden there's just no water left.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's not the case, but yeah, I mean, anytime these sort of new markets open up, you got to be real healthy about how you grow them, because you grow them too fast and it's a nightmare. It's a disaster.
Well, Dal, we're recording this during Comic-Con International San Diego.
Correct.
And
Day one.
We had, Day
one. Night one was yesterday. Night two will be happening in a little bit.
We had talked about potentially not recording until the end of the weekend because we don't want to miss any announcements, but we had too much other stuff to talk about.
Yeah, as it turns out.
So, is it worth mentioning what few things we've learned, or do we want to just sit on it till next week when it's old news?
Because there's going to be more. So we'll just do a few things that have been announced in the run-up to San Diego Comic-Con International.
Obviously, there's publisher announcements for a while.
Yeah.
Boom Studios has a history of doing a lead-up of announcements, 15 or so, depending on how many days until San Diego that is in the month, of announcements every weekday.
Yeah.
And this year it was things like Hellmouth, the Buffy and Angel crossover.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, other stuff. I'm just going to skip around to a whole bunch of things.
But also, I was just going to say, the DC had announced The Metal Men by Dan DiDio and Shane Davis.
Yeah, and I was totally going to skip that because I could not care less about anything in that sentence.
Sure.
Yeah. DC did have another announcement. The first of what will probably be many, hey, guess who's got a movie coming out next year, comic book announcements. Birds of Prey starring Harley Quinn, Black Canary and the Huntress will debut on October 30th. Written by Brian Azzarello, art by Emmanuel Lupacino, Ray McCarthy, and Trish Mulvihill.
Not a Black Label book.
Correct. This is a regular DC Universe title.
Interesting.
Yeah, on the one hand, literally no one was asking for a new Birds of Prey comic book. It's not a thing that we hear a lot of people asking for. Harley Quinn is a book that we are subscriber only on. Nobody cares.
Yeah, that's the thing that's so weird about there are so many new Harley Quinn books coming out when Harley Quinn is a character that just doesn't resonate with Challenger's
Harley Quinn
readers.
is the fourth pillar of the DC Universe. We sell 5 copies a month.
Yep. That being said, we already have way more than 5 people down for Harleen.
Yeah, but we push that on the back of Batman Damned.
Yeah.
And like you had said before, are we sending that out as an email to people who get Harley Quinn? And it's no, because there's 5 of them. We're going to send that to people who get Batman Damned because there's a few dozen. And that was the smart move. Yeah, Brian Azzarello on a regular DC Universe superhero title is sort of interesting. I'm curious as a reader to see what it's going to be like. But yeah, I look at this and I just think, you have to do this because there's a movie next year.
I'm curious because his long-rumored Suicide Squad book never materialized. I wonder if that's still in the works, or
a long weekend there at the old San Diego.
If this is repurposed. I can't see Brian Azzarello signing on for multiple team books at one time.
I don't know. DC has seemed more recently like they want to make better use of their kind of A-list legacy talent.
Sure.
You know?
As well they should.
People like Kelly Sue DeConnick are doing like a regular DC Universe Aquaman book.
Sure.
Coming up, they have another book that they just announced this week. They actually got play on a whole bunch of different sites. Starting October 9th, it's a 12-issue monthly maxi series with art by Brian Hitch. Warren Ellis is writing a Batman comic called The Batman's Grave.
Now, eagle-eared listeners may remember that I predicted that very storyline was going to be in the regular Batman comic between Tom King and potentially Brian Michael Bendis.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, that is not the case.
Right. As it turns out. One of the things that I didn't even notice, and big ups to ICV2's coverage of this for putting it in as a little parenthetical, inks by Kevin Nowlan.
Nice.
Yeah, it looks real good. I think I made a little joke, maybe on the podcast, maybe just in general, about what a Warren Ellis, Brian Hitch Batman comic was likely going to feature and how it was going to be very, like, Batman against cutting-edge genetically modified Black Ops soldiers. And it may yet be that thing, but I'm hoping it's not. This is a project I'm sort of excited about. I like both those guys. I have very fond memories of their work together. In general, this is something that I think will do well. It maybe is not the most surprising project of all time, but it seems like a very capital I important project. And once again, I can't complain about them doing Batman stuff because people have not gotten sick of Batman projects. Batman Universe #1, which should feel like the breaking point, people keep buying it, and it's great, and I really like it, and it's a very fresh Batman story. These Black Label projects, people keep signing up for them. Someone the other day was like, I just want all the Black Label projects. Which means they're signing up for a lot of Joker and Batman comics, but they seem fine with that. So that was the other DC one. A third DC one that was announced this week that is tickling my old nostalgia bone pretty heavily. Tales from the Dark Multiverse, a series of, I think, 5 one-shots?
5 weekly one-shots.
Siri, I'm not talking to you. The ones they've announced, the 2 big ones that they showed off first were Death of Superman, where Lois Lane becomes the Eradicator and gets revenge on the people who let Superman die, and Tales from the Dark Multiverse Batman Nightfall, where Bruce Wayne is unable to beat Azrael and take back the mantle of Batman. The other 3 that they're doing, I think that same month, is Dark Multiverse Tales based on Infinite Crisis, Blackest Night, and Judas Contract. Much like Dceased was Marvel Zombies but DC, this is very much What If but DC. DC is always, not always, but for the last few decades done Elseworlds comics, but that was always focused more on the concept rather than a specific plot point. It was always like Batman, but he's a pirate, instead of this Batman story that you read ended differently.
Yeah. The interesting thing about the Nightfall one is that it's co-written by Scott Snyder.
Yeah, it's Scott Snyder and Kyle Higgins. I thought it was James Tynion, but it was Kyle Higgins.
We thought Last Night on Earth was the last Scott Snyder.
Nope. This one, I guess,
Batman
because
book.
it's coming out during Last Night on Earth, maybe Last Night on Earth 3 will be his last thing.
Yeah.
The other comic they announced, The Death of Superman, is Jeff Loveness and Brad Walker, who are doing that one.
Okay.
Yeah, these sort of special 5-week project things, they're really hit or miss. I think they've missed more than they've hit, but this one sounds like it'll be pretty fun, and I expect fans to be pretty into it. They've got a wide swath of nostalgia they're playing with here, from stuff as far back as the 1980s up through like 2008. Like, I think that's a pretty strong batch of titles, and I can see this being a concept they come back to again and again when they need to. IDW had a couple projects they announced. The first is something where I'm really curious how big this can get, because it seems like it's a pretty... It would appeal to people more than maybe some of the other crossovers they've done with these characters. The Power Rangers are meeting the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
This is actually being published by Boom, not IDW, which means IDW will probably be doing their version of it.
Yes.
Somewhere down the line. This is coming out December 2019. It's written by one of the Power Rangers writers.
Yeah.
Just seems real solid. This is not my nostalgia, and these are not characters I'm personally that invested in. But a 5-issue MMPR TMNT event seems like a pretty solid sales idea.
Yeah, except it's the wrong turtles. They're missing one.
That's true. It's only 4 of them.
Yeah.
While meanwhile, the Power Rangers have 6 of them, you jerks. Maybe this was done before they'd finalized... what is her name?
Jenica.
Jenica.
Has been in the book since 51.
True, but she has only been a turtle for the last few weeks.
Yeah, but as you pointed out, Sophie Campbell did the designs for Jenica 2 years ago.
It's because Sophie Campbell's a genius and one of my top 3 artists currently working in comic books.
Who is number 2? I assume it's Tula Late at 1 and Sophie Campbell at 3.
Yeah. Can you guess who number 2 is?
Guri Hero.
Guri Hero is, as a collective, is 4. Guru Hero is absolutely in my top 5. Guru Hero would be 4. Olivier Coipel would be 5. Number 2, I realize you might just be spinning your wheels trying to figure it out.
Oh, see, now that's a total clue, and I don't get it.
Really? Are you listening?
See, when you say spinning your wheels and are you listening reminds me of a Queensrÿche song. Is Are You Listening? And spinning your wheels is Alice Cooper's Under My Wheels. I was going to say Sarah Kelly before, but it's not. It's
Tilly Walden. I just named like 3 Tilly Walden books.
I know.
Yeah, Tilly Walden's my number 2. Tula Lotay number 1. Sophie Campbell number 3. Guru Hero number 4. Olivier Coipel number 5. Way down on the list, probably in the
Brad
triple
Walker.
digits, would be Rob Liefeld, who is taking on Snake Eyes in a 4-issue event coming in early 2020. Snake Eyes The Game.
How many G.I. Joe relaunches and spin-offs and whatever? Like, we just finished the Michael Fife, not Michael Forge. Michael Fife.
Yep.
Michael Fife. And now Paul Eller is doing it.
The Paul Eller one is a more like long form in continuity one.
Okay.
This Rob Liefeld one is very much like Sierra Muerte, where it's meant to be like, look, you like this artist, maybe you don't care about G.I. Joe, but you'll want to see what they do with it.
Okay.
I think IDW has been really good with that, with being able to take their licensed Hasbro properties and say, let's throw this artist on it, who maybe is not what you're expecting, but clearly has a fan base and also has a fondness for these properties, so they will do something fun with it. I think that kind of melding of different camps, I think, is really interesting. And it's fun when you can do that with these big icon characters and properties. There's 1 or 2 more. Yeah, one last one. It's just a bunch of Marvel stuff that got announced.
Okay.
Any of the Marvel announcements you want to jump to first?
I don't know that I remember any of them.
Here's a whole bunch.
Obviously, I'm waiting for the Dawn of X announcements at the Next Big Thing panel on Saturday.
Correct. Yeah, I'm a little frustrated by the fact that because of the way that this convention schedule works, is that Marvel's been very light on details about what House of X and Powers of 10 are, because they kind of want you to experience that in a book. But the weekend before House of X number 1 comes out, they're going to ruin a whole bunch of things by saying, here are the titles that are going to be coming out after House of X and Powers of 10 end. Like, them saying there's a new X-Men book probably won't be a surprise, but they will probably have to announce a solo book or 2, and it's like, well, now I kind of have an idea of where the story is going that I wish I didn't.
The Wolverine by Jeff Lemire.
Yeah, right. So, 3 things. The first one is Beware the Ghost Rider.
I remember these things now.
Ed Brisson, Aaron Cooter, Danny Ketch in the lead role, and then Johnny Blaze as
King of Hell.
His boss, I guess. I don't know how it works. That'll be coming out. I don't care about Ghost Riders, so people can have that book, and I hope they enjoy it.
But I guess, October's going to be real big.
Big. Amazing Spider-Man Full Circle is coming out in October. You think it's a one-shot?
I think it's a one-shot.
I can't see anybody saying it's a miniseries or an ongoing, so maybe you're right. I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
It's a
when the
weird,
lists go up.
like, it was pitched as, hey, Nick Fury has a case Spider-Man has to work on, but it's a ton of writers and artists involved in this.
Yeah, Jonathan Hickman, Nick Spencer, Jerry Dugan, Al Ewing, Chip Zdarsky, Kelly Thompson, and Jason Aaron are writing it, which is a murderer's row of writers. Pretty much the best
I thought they
people
were all
working.
drawing it, and the other guys were right.
The artists, Chris Bacallo, Chris Sprouse, Greg Smallwood, Mike Allred, Rachel Stott, Valerio Sheedy, Cameron Stewart, and Mark Bagley. Yeah, I mean, just a bonkers list of creators.
Yeah. What is it?
Yeah, so what exactly is happening? Who knows? I'm confident saying I desperately want to read it just based on those creators.
Sure.
It's a nice mix of people who I'll read anything they do, like Greg Smallwood and Chris Bacallo, and then people who I think are maybe a little under the radar that could use a little bit of a spotlight, like Rachel Stott, who I think is incredibly talented, and I'd love for her to get more work at Marvel off of something like this. So that one I'm really excited about. Swinging back into the stuff I completely don't care about, but hope there's a market for. Marvel Zombies Respawn, number 1. Philip Kennedy Johnson, Leonard Kirk. Marvel Zombies are back. I don't know. Maybe there's still a market for that. I don't know.
But it sounds like this is like they never happened before.
I guess.
Not like what's been going on since, but hey, this is like a new... I could be wrong. It felt to me like an all-original, this is how it happens story.
This is the first I'm reading about it. ICV2 has it as the House of M's living dead in a far-ranging saga that begins... I think they mean Marvel, not literally the House of M story, but maybe they do.
Right.
In a far-ranging saga that begins when the corpse of Galactus appears at the edge of the solar system, spawning an infestation which one by one transforms Earth's mightiest heroes into the universe's most terrifying predators.
We've seen the corpse of Galactus before in Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I mean, this all sounds whatever to me, but again, I don't have to be the market for every book. People can hopefully find something they enjoy in it.
Yep.
I don't know that it's a huge sales driver because Marvel Zombies as a sales thing is, no pun intended, pretty dead. We don't sell a lot of the classic compilations. The last few series they've done, I think we've just sold single digits of most of those issues as far as copies go. I don't know that this is going to turn it around based on that creative team and the glut of product Marvel's putting out.
Yep.
But who knows?
I don't. But, of course, if you want this, or any of the books you've heard talked about in this week's episode of Contests of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast on the Yak Channel Podcast Network in Chicago, please don't hesitate to ask us. We'll make sure to reserve it for you in advance, and that helps us with our ordering, because we get an idea for how many people are interested in a thing, and the more people that pre-order, the more we think, oh, this is a book that people are going to care about, so we can have numbers right for the speculators to come in and pick our bones clean.
But please don't ask for any of these books until August 1st. Please, please, please. Somebody was already like, can I have that new Fantastic Four Grand Design? Not yet. It's not even in the catalog yet. No, please, just wait.
I would like to pre-add everything they talk about on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, and I'm not going to respond to any emails.
Okay, great.
And then I'll be able to say, but I told you.
Uh-huh.
And I told you that I'm thankful that you listened.
Keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.